My friends, good day. After leaving that heated meeting in Washington with Trump and Vance, well, the Ukrainian President Zelensky landed back home. He landed in London. In the United Kingdom today, there are more Ukrainian flags than British flags. There are even town halls that look unfavorably on the British flag and don't hesitate to raise the Ukrainian flag for weeks or even months at a time. Quite simply, as you know, people in this country are extremely influenced by television. Most of them 2 years ago didn't even know where Ukraine was. Today, they're more in a mindset, like we used to say during the time of the Islamist party in Germany and Algeria, we'll live for this and we'll die for this. That's how it is. Conditioning whole populations is very effective. They end up very quickly acting against their own interests and getting involved in things that are beyond them, in stories they don't understand and where they have everything to lose. So the United Kingdom is leading the confrontation. And the official statement is, we want peace, we want lasting peace. So my friends, it's laughable, excuse me for the nervous laugh. There are really people dying on the ground, and that's not something to laugh about. But the reality is shocking. They set out with intentions of wanting a lasting peace. But you have to know, with these people today, I think by now you've understood, you always have to reverse their words. Every time they tell you something, they mean exactly the opposite. These are people who can defend censorship while talking to you about democracy. These are people who can send the police, who can create political persecution while talking to you about freedom. Tu vois? Donc, so what is their peace? Well, we know a little bit about the outline of the peace plan. I'm putting that in very heavy scare quotes, proposed by the United Kingdom. So what is it? It's a plan that demands billions for the defense budget, that requires 5,000 missiles deployed in Ukraine, that calls for more sanctions. It's not a peace plan, it's yet another escalation plan. It's a plan to create even more problems, to make the situation even worse, isn't it? Because a peace plan, if we stop, if we talk about de-escalation, we talk about humanitarian corridors, we talk about a ceasefire, we talk about disarmament, we call for roundtable discussions, we send mediators, that's what it is. Observers on the ground, UN peacekeepers, that's what you do when you want to stop a war. But what the United Kingdom and the other surrounding countries, the other European countries are doing is actually adding more fuel to the fire. Europe today. Europe acts as a country, when you look at it, as a zone, a region, if you will, when you look from the outside, that is sinking, which is sinking into crisis, into misery, into debt, into decay, and at the same time is barking at the whole world. Warmongering just beneath the surface. They have a problem with China, with Russia, with the BRICS, with the United States today, with everyone, with the whole world, Europe, for example. Europe, you need to know one thing, the European elites, my friends, the European elites. I'm even in favor of an international coalition to come and remove them. Because quite simply, last century, these elites caused two world wars with tens of millions of deaths across the planet, wars started by Europe. So if Europe wants to reconnect with its tradition again, to start more world wars this century, and once again cause deaths, not only in Europe but also abroad, I think it's in the interest of humanity to intervene militarily in Europe. And so try to remove these wrongdoers, these regimes that have been there for generations, and keep pushing the peoples of Europe into massacres. I'd also like to tell you something else, how I see it from the outside, as an African. I told you, and I'll tell you, what I see is an anti-Christian coalition. I see an anti-Christian coalition coming together to prepare for a war against Russia. Why? Because all these countries have destroyed Christianity in their own lands. You know, I don't need to say much more about it. You know what I'm talking about. These are countries that not only destroy Christianity, but also destroy Christian values, the values that were theirs not so long ago. Those values have been wiped out. Today they teach there are children. They are expressed in a single figure that these values do not exist. And in fact, they are even taught the opposite of those values. It's madness, really. These countries today cannot tolerate, cannot accept, cannot stand that there is still a Christian country, Russia, of a certain size that continues with traditional values. It's not possible. It's an anti-Christian coalition. So someone will tell me, yes, but if you look at Ukraine, it's also a Christian country. Yes. So you can always say that it's a contradiction. I say it's killing two birds with one stone. Because if you look, Ukrainians are also dying in large numbers. Ukraine, if the war stops today, if it were to stop now, I don't even know if they will have enough young people to start families and raise the next generation. I think they're facing demographic decline. I'm not even sure they'll ever be able to recover from it, that they'll be able to fix it. Or maybe the United Kingdom will advise them to use its traditional method, which is to perhaps import strong migrants and then pursue a resolutely pro-natalist policy towards them, right? To replace a little bit those who are killed on the battlefield by drones, by bombings, in a war that is ultimately fratricidal in reality. Because for me, as an African, I see it as the war of the two Vladimirs, Vladimir Putin against Vladimir Zelensky. And of course, the anti-Christian coalition that is arming one against the other. And then they say to them, go ahead, kill each other. And in the end, for them, either way, it's positive, you see? There you have it, my friends. That's it. The war is not going. How should I put it? What's happening today is that the Europeans, look at the United Kingdom, for example. Well, they are going to cut 5 billion pounds from the social welfare budget. All right. So that's the budget that goes to the most vulnerable members of society to put it into the war effort. They are going to cut 28 billion from the infrastructure budget to put it again into the war effort. We are literally signing checks for several billion every week. As I already told you, we have a 100-year commitment to pay Ukraine no matter what happens. Every month, every year, we will have to pay. And so we are in a rundown country. We are in a country that is collapsing. And what's shocking, and I would even say that the majority of Britons don't see it, I tend to think most people haven't noticed because they're too absorbed in television. You know, whenever something is in short supply here, when they're going to close a school here, or when they're going to close a, how should I put it, a doctor's office or a clinic or something else, they'll always give you lessons in economic realism. They'll always explain to you that there are limits, that money can't just be found like that. We can't just print it. That phrase always comes up. But you know, we can't print money. No, it doesn't just get printed like that. Except when it comes to shady business, then they have unlimited money. So there you go, my friends. As I told you, we are in a situation today where taxpayers' money is taken by force. Debt is also taken on in our name, and they use that money however they want. And now what they want is a third world war. But this time it won't be a world war, it will be a European war, because the world is awake. Back then, the war was worldwide, if you will. The First and Second Wars were global, because the world was largely controlled by Europe. If you remember, there were still European colonies. There was the British Empire that covered half the planet, all that. So indeed, when European countries got involved in a war, even fratricidal wars, even wars between crowned heads, wars between the bourgeois, all that. Look at the First World War. Tens of millions of deaths. I guarantee you, if you do a street interview and ask for the name of the guy who got shot in Sarajevo, and after which we had the outbreak of the First World War, I guarantee you 90% of people won't know his name. And the remaining 10% who do know his name, right, won't be able to tell you what an archduke is, where he lived, what his job was, what his importance was, or anything like that. You realize that it was just a pretext that was used to start World War I. And besides, as proof, he was killed at the beginning of it, and at the end of it, he was still dead. Which means that starting a war for that guy was completely pointless. There you go, my friends. We'll see what happens. But in any case, the good news today is that if a third world war breaks out, we'll call it the Third European War rather than the Third World War. Thanks for watching so far, and I'll see you in the next video.